Okay, so bringing you guys a build breakdown on my Traxxas TRX4m High Trail. It started out as the Chevy and now it has turned into the Injora IR40 body. This is the setup that I like, completely slammed out, 100% sag in the front, about 80 to 90 in the rear. And one of the reasons why I love this body so much is because I actually didn't have to shave or cut it at all. With this steering angle, it just rubs a little bit on this corner right here, and that's about it, but I can live with that. You guys can see it's quite beat up. I love this truck and putting it through its paces to see what it can do, and I have always been certainly surprised by what it does. So, like I said, it is the Injora IR40 body, and going from the High Trail to this, I had to put the Bronco Traxxas chassis on here. I personally like the stock, or a stock chassis on here. I think it performs very well and don't see any aftermarket one that I like better. I personally have the Traxxas Bronco front shock mounts on here, light plastic, hold up well, I like them. And for the rear, since the wheelbase is longer, I choose to have the Injora rear shock mounts. Also, a little trick for this is you can see a little scratch right here. You can run these mounts on the stock Chevy or Ford body to not have to cut the body at all, to have it not be a high trail anymore. So that's what I did when I had my Chevy body, and then have just kept this going throughout all the different setups that I've had, but this one is my favorite so far. So with that, let's go through the electronics. So I have the FureTech Python Pro ESC, and that comes with a Cedar motor. I got these on sale when the new ones came out and do not regret it at all. Absolutely love them. I got the little 4-channel receiver for the GT5 remote that I have, and yeah, this has been working very well. And as you guys can see, I made little skid plates for mounting these. These are just pieces of Thule roof rack covers that I just trimmed down to make fit these perfect. So as for the transmission, I still run the plastic case, the stock one. I have the Injora metal 40:1 gear ratio, which reduces the overall ratio by, I think it's 59%. And then I personally still use the Traxxas batteries. I don't like putting stickers on my truck, so I put them on the battery. So when you shut the shell, you can see the sticker out the back. But still using the factory mounts that came with it. No. And then to mount everything together, I still use the plastic skid plate. I like it, haven't had an issue with it, and it will actually slide over rocks better. Now going from there, actually, I run the NSD RC RS100M servo. I love this servo. I tried the Traxxas one and it was not worth it. This I highly think is worth it, and I just recently have switched it to run the 7.4 volts, and don't know why I didn't do this sooner. So moving down from there, I have the Injora 53mm shocks. They do leak some, but my trick to try to get the least amount of leaking is I run 10 weight fluid. The first time I built these, I did 3 to 4 drops per shock. This time I had them fully filled up, and I have to say that I actually like the 3 to 4 drops better. As you guys can see, no springs up front, no cups, and this actually gives you more travel with these, which I really like, but also only a certain amount of travel. So in the rears, I run the softest springs, and then for the shock cups, I actually used bicycle, they're the Trek frame brake stops that go into the frame that I cut up, and they fit the end links perfect. So got that on the back, and it gives me the perfect amount of preload or sag that I want. Also, with the front shocks, one thing that I did do was I took out the brass ball link from below, and I put a Traxxas one in there to make it a little bit more narrow, because you can see on my Trail knuckles, I had to cut them to get as much steering angle as I did, but surprisingly, these are actually stock internal axles. So after the Trail steering knuckles, I run the SSD little C knuckles, and I had to shave them out for the Trail steering knuckles. If I did it again, I would just get the Trail versions of those. And like I said, running the stock axles that came with the 4M, I personally run bearings in the Traxxas bearings in the whole truck. But as you guys can see, I run the Injora axle housing with a Traxxas brass front cover to give some extra clearance with my steering links. I personally run the metal Traxxas gears in the front. In the rear one, I have the plastic black cover on the back, and then I have the Injora underdrive gears in the back that lower it, I believe it's 16.6% or something along those lines. As for the drive shafts, I just keep the plastic one in the rear just as a breaking point. I have broken gears before, even metal ones. But for the front drive shaft, I just use this Amazon special one. It's a ball joint, which I actually think works better than the U-joints for how light these are and just how much torque they have for potentially running no springs or super light springs. So that's kind of one of my little secrets. Another one is, well, we'll get to that. No, I run the suspension links from Traxxas, the steel ones up front. These are the high trail length ones. I ran the front ones a hair shorter to line them up with the body better and to get the servo horn to pass through the clip of the body, because I like keeping a pretty simple setup. As for the rear, I run the Traxxas steel high trail ones in the back as well. The lower ones right now are the Injora steel high clearance ones. One thing that I did was right here, how they have the little hexes, I took a razor blade and cut it down to the end of the hex to make it a little bit shorter to roll the rear axle up just a hair. So let's see, from there I run for the steering links, I run the Muse lay down axle lower piece from wheel to wheel, and then for the upper one I run the Injora 3-piece link for the vertical servo, but I just changed out this end link, which I also cut off right here at the end of the hex to give it the proper length over, and I really like the setup. I think this actually helps with how much steering angle I can get out of these. So Very happy with this. I run the Muse Servo horn and the Muse Servo mount right now. They were on sale. They're black and I like them. So from that, I think it leaves me with the wheels. So I run the J-Concept Tusk tires. I absolutely love these tires. The compound is amazing. I plan on probably getting a couple different sets of J-Concept tires because I like the rubber compound so much. I've tried other aftermarket ones, which I'm not as happy with. But once some more come in stock, I will try a couple different treads out. But as you guys can see, I run the Traxxas plastic beadlock wheels. This is another one I had off. I had these metal bolts in, and they're too big for the trail knuckles up front, so I bought a second pair, or a third set actually, and just left the I just left the black bolts that have more clearance in the back. But the reason why I like these is they're cheap. I already spent money on the brass rings, and that's actually been a huge plus. Plus, you have this extra little lip on the inside right here. It's a little bit taller than most aftermarket ones, and it seems to actually hug the tire better. So I have the Traxxas brass inner rings in this wheel with some adapters, some M26 by 32 adapters to make aftermarket tires fit on these Traxxas wheels. And in the front wheels, I have the OGRC silicone inserts and just the stock J-Concept rears, which I find to be a little bit stiffer than most aftermarket tire ones, and I think they're perfect for the rear. But that being said, this is the setup that I run on the inside. So this is exactly what it would look like, except for it would be a brass ring. So these are the little crush washers that you can get off Amazon. Like I said, they are M26 by 32, and the reason why 32 is that's the inner diameter of this, so you can see that it doesn't hardly move too much. And then to get the wheel in there, it needs to be 26 center. And then this is what the OGRC silicone insert looks like. I trimmed the inner layer out to get it to press onto these center rings perfectly. If you run aftermarket center rings, you won't need to cut that out. And I personally run them this way, so it's like a reversed shark tooth or saw blade. So I find this to just give it a little bit smoother of a roll versus trying to do this. I found it being kind of a little bit bouncy. So I personally run it this way. I think this setup is the best because it fits me perfectly. So if you guys want to utilize this, I think this is a huge benefit because you can kind of tune your weight. I also ran trail centers, the face and the back on these before. I did have a couple issues with pulling the J-Concept tires out of them, but also the trail wheels as a whole. I had issues getting the J-Concept tires to seat with the trail inner rings. So that's why I chose to do this. And like I said, super happy with this. Now for the weight of my truck, I don't think I've done anything since I weighed it, and it weighed 738 grams, and then it is about 39 to 41% ratios. I really like this. Most of the weight by far is unsprung weight on the bottom. Heavier body with heavier battery, but I like how it looks. I think it's worth it, and that's how I'm going to keep it. And then I'm also pretty sure side to side is right at like 50-50, maybe 50.5, 49.5, just with the ESC on this side. But don't run any lights. I would like to add some scale accessories to it, probably add a fire extinguisher for the back, and I don't know, maybe call it a day with that. But I'm super excited with how this turned out, how it performs. It fits my driving style perfectly. I like how planted it feels with having still pretty decent flex. I think too much flex makes your truck unsettled and doesn't perform well, as well as I like having vertical shocks for the most part. Rears I'm still kind of tinkering around with. This is the setup that I've been running for a few weeks, potentially a few months, and just really like it. So if you guys have liked this video, give me a thumbs up. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns about the build, leave them down below and I'll get back to you and I'll help you guys out. And yeah, see you guys in the next one.